I recently read an interview of Lorraine Daston, a reputed historian of science from USA, on a topic: Does science need history? She was interviewed by the philosopher Samuel Lonkar. The long form discussion is about history of science and how and why it is relevant not only to the public but also to the practicing scientist. In the later part of the interview, I found an interesting and an important observation made by Lorraine, and to quote, one of the greatest achievements of science, contrary to what anyone would have thought not just circa 1700 but circa 1800, is the creation of the only effective international governance systems that we have. In the face of two planetary crises, climate change and a global pandemic, it has not been the UN, it has not been the G8 that got together to diagnose the problem and suggest a solution. It has been the international community of scientists, and I would be extremely loath in any way to undermine the only example of semi effective international governance we have. Stop quote. This is probably one of the important comments on science I have come across in recent times. In an age where nation states are still fighting big and small wars, this is indeed a profound reminder on what truly is the instrument of effective international governance. Do check out the whole interview in the description. It has many interesting strands, branches, and discussion, including philosophy of science, publishing, and some great references to explore. As I've mentioned previously in my blogs and podcasts, part of the reason why I blog is to bring out the human side of doing science. Interviews like these reinforce this thought and encourage me as scientist to look into the history of science as not something decoupled from science itself, but as part of one's research in understanding why we, as human beings, are interested in science. In my opinion, our science education and research will be vastly enriched by including and emphasizing history of science as integral part of science. Frequently, I've also found that some of the best commentaries and criticism on science as human endeavor emanating from historians of science. After all, it was history of science which opened our eyes towards understanding the structure of scientific revolution. Hence, science plus history leads to better science and perhaps better human beings.